There comes a moment in life when you realize that the hostility directed toward you has very little to do with your actions and far more to do with the unseen depths within others. You may wonder why a friend suddenly grows distant, why a colleague begins to undermine you, why someone who once praised you now resents your presence. At first glance, you might believe it is your fault, that you made a mistake, that you misstepped somewhere along the way. But often the truth is far more complex, far more hidden. It is not your actions they are reacting to. It is the shadow within themselves that they have never dared to confront. The human psyche is not simply light and clarity. Every person carries within them a shadow, the repository of rejected traits, disowned desires, buried shame, and unacknowledged fears. These are the aspects of the self that people cannot bear to face. Instead of integrating them, they push them down into the unconscious. Yet the shadow never disappears. It lingers, waiting, heavy, and silent, until the right trigger calls it forth. And that trigger, more often than not, is another person. You may become the embodiment of what someone has denied within themselves. Perhaps your confidence highlights the insecurity they cannot admit. Perhaps your discipline exposes the laziness they have hidden. Perhaps your compassion reminds them of their cruelty, or your freedom reveals the chains they have willingly locked themselves into. When this happens, they do not see you. They see their shadow in you, and they despise it. Hatred, envy, and resentment are often nothing more than projections of the unclaimed parts of themselves. This is why people can treat you like an enemy without you ever harming them. They wage war not because of your actions, but because your existence unsettles their illusion. You become the mirror that shows them who they are, and that reflection is unbearable. Instead of facing their own darkness, they attempt to destroy the mirror. They speak against you, sabotage you, or distance themselves from you, believing that by removing you, they can remove the shadow. But the shadow follows them everywhere, whispering, waiting, demanding recognition. Understanding this dynamic changes everything. It allows you to stop taking hatred personally. When you see clearly, you realize they are not fighting you. They are fighting themselves. They are not repelled by your essence, but by the part of their essence they have buried and disowned. You simply became the stage upon which their inner conflict is projected. Think of the person who ridicules kindness. Beneath the mockery is often a shadow filled with unhealed wounds from neglect, a longing for tenderness they never received. Think of the one who despises confidence. Beneath their hostility lies a shadow suffocated by doubt, a self-image so fragile that another's strength feels like an insult. Think of the individual who cannot tolerate another's freedom. Their shadow carries chains of fear and obedience, a suffocating need for external approval. When you stand in your light, you bring their darkness into focus, and many would rather blame you than look within. This is why the shadow is so dangerous. It convinces people that what they hate in others is real, when in truth it is only a reflection of themselves. It is easier to attack the external than to acknowledge the internal. It is easier to criticize another's success than to admit one's own passivity. It is easier to condemn someone's authenticity than to confront one's own false identity. But you must also recognize that the shadow is not only in others, it is within you as well. Just as you awaken discomfort in others, others awaken discomfort in you. The traits you despise, the people who irritate you, and the qualities you mock, all of these may point toward your own unclaimed shadow. To deny this is to live in blindness, forever blaming, forever projecting. To see it is to begin the work of integration, the work of making peace with the darker corners of your being. The shadow within others will continue to operate silently, shaping their judgments, distorting their perceptions, guiding their hostility. They may never realize that you are not their enemy, but their mirror. They may never understand that what they despise in you is the unhealed wound in themselves. Their struggle may remain hidden, their projection unacknowledged, their hostility unexplainable. But if you see it clearly, you will no longer be deceived by appearances. You will know that beneath the mask of hatred, beneath the eruption of envy, beneath the wall of rejection, there is a shadow that refuses to be seen. And it is that shadow that speaks through them, not their conscious self. Authenticity is one of the most disarming forces a human being can embody. To be authentic means to live without the constant need for masks, to speak with a voice that is not borrowed, and to act in alignment with one's inner compass. Yet, as liberating as authenticity feels to the one who embraces it, it often awakens resistance, hostility, and even hatred in others. Because authenticity is not just a way of being, it is a mirror that exposes falseness. And when you step into your authentic self, you unknowingly challenge the illusions others depend upon for survival. Many people live behind masks. They construct identities that are palatable, roles that win approval, personas that shield them from rejection. These masks become armor against the world, disguises carefully maintained to keep insecurities hidden. But the presence of someone authentic destabilizes that armor. It reveals the fragility of the mask. It makes the carefully constructed identity feel weak, hollow, and temporary. And this is why authenticity is often perceived as a threat. When you are authentic, you remind others of what they are not. You remind them of the compromises they've made, the truths they've silenced, the roles they've played just to belong. Your presence becomes a silent confrontation. They do not hear you say, "You are not real." Yet something in their unconscious registers it. It registers it as danger, and danger awakens defense. That defense often appears as rejection, criticism, or contempt toward the one who simply dares to live truthfully. This is why authenticity can feel isolating. You wonder why people withdraw, why some turn cold, why others subtly undermine your presence. It is not always because of who you are, but because of the way your authenticity disrupts their illusion. To them, you become intolerable, not for any harm you've done, but for the way your being challenges the stability of the roles they cling to. Consider how unsettling it is to encounter someone who refuses to conform. Their refusal reminds you of your own compliance. Think of the one who speaks truth when everyone else chooses silence. Their courage calls out your fear, whether they intend to or not. Think of the individual who lives unapologetically, whose choices reflect freedom instead of approval-seeking. Their freedom highlights the chains around your own decisions. Authenticity, by its very nature, awakens discomfort. It forces people to look inward, and many are not ready to face what they see. But authenticity is not arrogance. It is not rebellion for the sake of rebellion. It is alignment, the simple act of existing as you are, without distortion. Yet this simplicity is what makes it powerful. A mask requires effort to maintain, a lie requires constant reinforcement, an image demands continuous energy, but authenticity demands nothing. It flows, it stands, it breathes. And this effortless presence exposes the exhausting effort others are pouring into their illusions. This is why some will quietly resent the authentic individual. They will mock them, labeling them naive or self-absorbed. They will accuse them of arrogance or eccentricity. These are defense mechanisms, ways to diminish the threat without having to change themselves. Because to truly accept authenticity means to question their own inauthenticity. And that requires courage most do not yet have. It is easier to scorn the one who stands in truth than to face the prison of one's own falsehood. Authenticity also threatens established power structures. Entire systems are built upon conformity, silence, and obedience. Families, workplaces, and even communities often depend on roles being played, on scripts being followed. The one who refuses the script, who breaks the role, becomes disruptive. They expose the fragility of the system. They prove that the role is not absolute, that the script is not law. And those who depend on the system's stability will often target the authentic one as the problem, when in reality it is their authenticity that reveals the problem. Yet authenticity does more than provoke hostility. It awakens longing deep inside. Even those who resent authenticity feel the stirring of desire for it. They see in you the possibility of freedom. They sense in you the courage they lack. They may attack you, but beneath that attack is envy, a painful recognition of what they have buried within themselves. Your presence reminds them of their unlived life, of the self they abandoned to meet expectations. And for some, this reminder is intolerable. Authenticity is not safe. It does not guarantee admiration or acceptance. In fact, it often guarantees the opposite. To live authentically is to accept that you will be misunderstood, judged, and even resented. But it also means you will no longer live enslaved to the shifting opinions of others. You will not contort yourself to fit illusions. You will not betray your inner compass for temporary approval. You will stand as you are, even when it unsettles others. And perhaps that is why authenticity feels threatening, because it is contagious. The authentic self does not only live for itself, it inspires others, consciously or unconsciously, to question their own masks. And questioning is the first step toward transformation. This is the silent revolution of authenticity. It destabilizes illusions, awakens envy, and provokes hostility. But it also plants the seed of freedom in the very people who resist it. A human interaction is rarely as simple as it appears on the surface. Every conversation, every relationship, every exchange of words or silence carries with it a current of power. Sometimes it flows softly, almost invisible, and sometimes it surges with undeniable force. Yet most of the time, these dynamics remain hidden. They operate in the background, shaping behaviors, guiding reactions, influencing decisions. The unspoken war of power is not always about dominance in the obvious sense. It is about control, influence, validation, and the unacknowledged desire to shape another person's reality. We like to believe relationships are built purely on love, respect, or shared goals. But beneath those noble words lie subtler motives. A person seeks reassurance of their worth. Another craves recognition. Another wants obedience. And still another thrives on superiority. These needs are not always declared, but they play out in the ways people treat one another. When someone suddenly turns cold, when affection turns to hostility, when a friend begins to compete instead of support, it is often because an invisible balance of power has shifted. Power dynamics are rarely equal. Even in the closest relationships, there is an undercurrent of who leads and who follows, who validates and who seeks validation, who influences and who is influenced. These roles can change over time, and when they do, tension often arises. A person who once felt in control may sense they are losing influence. The one who relied on your weakness may find themselves unsettled when you begin to grow stronger. The individual who thrived on your dependence may feel threatened when you show independence. These subtle shifts often ignite resentment, not because of your actions alone, but because of what those actions symbolize, a rearranging of the silent hierarchy. Consider how people react when you set boundaries. The moment you draw a line, you disturb the balance. The one who benefited from your compliance suddenly sees their control slipping. Their hostility is not about the boundary itself, but about the loss of unspoken power. Or think about how people respond when you succeed. For some, your achievement becomes a reminder of their lack, a disruption of the unspoken agreement that kept you beneath them. The relationship shifts, and the silent power dynamic can no longer hold. Even in ordinary interactions, these dynamics play out. In conversation, who interrupts and who listens? In groups, who commands attention and who blends into the background? In families, who is deferred to and who is dismissed? These patterns may appear trivial, but they reveal the distribution of power that quietly governs relationships. And when one person begins to resist, when they step out of the expected role, it often provokes friction. The unseen nature of power dynamics makes them especially dangerous because they are rarely acknowledged. They are easily misinterpreted. You may believe someone dislikes you for no reason, when in reality they sense a threat to their control. You may think you disappointed someone with your choices, when in truth those choices reveal to them how little power they actually hold over you. The hostility you encounter is not about who you are, but about what your presence disrupts in their hidden balance of control. Power does not always mean authority or dominance in an obvious sense. Sometimes it is as subtle as emotional leverage, the ability to make someone feel guilty, the capacity to withhold affection, the silent pressure of expectation. A person may not raise their voice, yet they wield enormous influence by threatening withdrawal, by offering approval only when you conform, by manipulating the unspoken rules of connection. When you stop playing along, when you stop giving them that leverage, the structure collapses. And few things breed resentment faster than the collapse of a hidden structure of power. To recognize these dynamics is to understand that conflict is often not about surface disagreements. It is about the deeper struggle for influence, the fear of losing control, the insecurity of being overshadowed. People rarely say, "I resent you because you no longer make me feel superior," or "I am angry because I cannot manipulate you anymore." Instead, they frame it as betrayal, arrogance, selfishness, or disrespect. These words disguise the deeper truth. The power they once held over you has slipped away. Yet the desire for power is not inherently malicious. It is rooted in human nature. People seek control because they fear chaos. They crave influence because it reassures them of their worth. They cling to hierarchies because it makes them feel safe in a world of uncertainty. The problem arises when these desires are left unacknowledged, when they twist into silent expectations, when they turn into hostility toward those who do not comply. You cannot always dismantle these dynamics, nor can you always prevent the resentment they create. But by seeing them clearly, you free yourself from confusion. You stop internalizing hatred as if it were born from your flaws. You begin to see that much of what people project onto you is not about you at all. It is about the shifting currents of invisible power, the silent hierarchies that govern human connection, the fragile sense of control that people protect at all costs. Human beings do not simply see others as they are. They see themselves reflected back through others. Every interaction becomes a kind of mirror, a silent revelation of hidden truths, unacknowledged wounds, and secret desires. What we admire in others often reveals what we long to cultivate within ourselves. What we despise in others often exposes the parts of us we refuse to face. This is the mirror effect, the undeniable truth that the judgments we cast outward are more often than not a reflection of our inner world. The mirror effect is why people can suddenly turn against you without cause. They are not truly reacting to you. They are reacting to what you awaken within them. When you embody qualities they have suppressed, you become the mirror that reveals what they are missing, what they are avoiding, or what they are ashamed of. And for many, that reflection is intolerable. Instead of facing it, they attack the mirror. They criticize, they resent, they distance themselves, not because you harm them, but because your existence has brought their shadow into focus. Imagine the person who mocks your ambition. Beneath their laughter is often the sting of their own unfulfilled potential. Imagine the one who cannot stand your confidence. Their hostility may be the echo of their own buried insecurity. Consider the individual who despises your freedom. Their anger may arise from the chains of fear and approval that bind them. In every case, the hatred is less about you and more about the reflection you bring to their surface. This is why the mirror effect is so unsettling. It does not allow illusions to remain intact. When you live authentically, when you grow, When you embody traits others have denied in themselves, you strip away the comfort of their self-deception. You remind them of who they could be, or who they once wanted to be, or who they fear they truly are. The reflection you offer becomes too sharp, too honest, too revealing, and instead of using that mirror to transform, they may choose to shatter it by projecting their discomfort back onto you. But the mirror effect does not only apply to others, it applies to you as well. The people who irritate you, the traits you find unbearable, the behaviors you condemn with unusual intensity, these may be signals of your own unacknowledged shadow. The laziness you despise in another may reveal the part of you that fears rest. The arrogance you loathe may point to your own buried hunger for recognition. The dishonesty you cannot tolerate may reflect your own moments of silence when you refuse to speak your truth. What you reject in others is often a reflection of what you reject within yourself. To recognize this is to understand the profound truth of projection. When a person projects their insecurities onto you, they are unloading what they cannot face. They accuse you of selfishness when it is they who fear being selfish. They call you arrogant when it is they who secretly long to feel superior. They label you a failure when it is they who feel failure, gnawing at their sense of worth. Projection is not always malicious, it is often unconscious. But it distorts reality, making enemies out of mirrors and turning reflections into targets. This is why awareness is so essential. If you live blind to the mirror effect, you will spend your life believing the opinions of others define you. You will chase approval, fear rejection, and misinterpret hostility as evidence of your inadequacy. But when you see clearly, you understand that the way people treat you is often more about their inner battles than about your worth. Their admiration is a reflection of their unclaimed potential. Their hatred is a reflection of their disowned shadow. The mirror effect also explains why certain relationships feel magnetic. When someone admires you, it is not only because of who you are, but because you remind them of their unlived possibilities. Your courage awakens their own courage. Your kindness stirs their own compassion. Your growth sparks their own desire to evolve. In this way, the mirror can inspire transformation, not just hostility. The reflection you offer can serve as a catalyst, urging others to reclaim the parts of themselves they have long abandoned. Yet not everyone chooses growth when faced with the mirror. Some resist, some deny, some lash out. And so relationships fracture, trust dissolves, and hostility surfaces. The mirror effect reveals that conflict is rarely about surface-level issues. It is about deeper truths being reflected, truths that someone is not yet ready to face. The anger is not really about your words, your choices, or your existence. It is about the pain of seeing oneself too clearly in another. To live with this awareness is to carry a different kind of strength. You stop personalizing every rejection. You begin to see criticism as information, not condemnation. You recognize that envy is not proof of your guilt, but proof of another's longing. You accept that hatred is often misdirected self-hatred disguised as outward hostility. The mirror effect shows you that human connection is never just about the surface. It is always about reflection, projection, and the silent dialogue between inner worlds. And so the mirror effect becomes both a challenge and an invitation. A challenge, because it means you will often be targeted for what you awaken in others. An invitation, because it also means every reaction, admiration, or hatred can reveal hidden truths about the one giving it. To see others as mirrors is to gain insight into yourself. To see yourself as a mirror is to understand the invisible reasons why people treat you the way they do. Envy rarely announces itself. It does not arrive with a trumpet of confession or an honest admission of weakness. Instead, envy hides in silence. It lingers in the pauses between words, in the sudden withdrawal of warmth, in the subtle shift of energy that tells you something has changed, though no one dares to name it. Envy is one of the most powerful yet concealed emotions in human relationships. And because it is rarely spoken aloud, it becomes dangerous, corrosive, and destructive. Most people will not tell you they envy you. They will not say, "Your success makes me feel small," or "Your confidence reminds me of what I lack." To admit envy is to admit inadequacy, and pride will not allow that. So, envy disguises itself. It cloaks itself in silence, in backhanded compliments, in sudden distance, in hidden resentment. You may not even know it is there until it erupts, until admiration turns into criticism, until friendship turns into rivalry, until support turns into sabotage. The silence of envy is deceptive because it often masquerades as indifference. You may notice someone who once celebrated your victories no longer claps as loudly, no longer reaches out, no longer smiles with the same sincerity. Their silence feels heavy, but you cannot trace it to a specific moment of betrayal. That is because envy grows slowly, quietly, like a shadow stretching in the background. It waits for a moment of comparison, a reminder of what they lack, and in that moment, it tightens its grip. What makes envy so insidious is that it feeds on closeness. Strangers may admire you, but it is often those closest to you who feel the sting of comparison most intensely. A friend, a colleague, even a family member can find themselves silently consumed by envy, not because you harmed them, but because your progress illuminated their stagnation. Your light exposes the corners of their own unfulfilled potential. And instead of using that discomfort to grow, they retreat into silence, nursing a hidden wound that turns into quiet hostility. The silence of envy also reveals itself in the way people interpret your actions. Words you spoke with innocence are twisted into arrogance. Achievements you earned with effort are dismissed as luck. Boundaries you set for self-respect are framed as selfishness. These distortions are not reflections of your truth, but of their envy. Envy clouds perception. It makes others see not who you are, but what they fear they are not. And because envy is rarely confronted directly, it spreads like a poison. Left unspoken, it festers. Left unacknowledged, it deepens. People rarely say, "I envy you." But they may express it through subtle acts of sabotage, through undermining remarks, through withholding support when you need it most. Their silence is not neutral. It is charged with resentment. It is the silence that does not celebrate your growth, the silence that withholds recognition, the silence that quietly wishes for your failure just to feel relief. But envy does not only live in others, it lives in you as well. To deny this is to remain blind to your own shadow. There are times you too have looked upon another's freedom, beauty, success, or courage, and felt a sting of inadequacy. You may not have admitted it, but you felt it. The silence of envy is not exclusive to your enemies. It can creep into your own heart too. And if you do not face it, you will project it onto others, condemning them for the very qualities you wish you had cultivated within yourself. The silence of envy is a reminder of how deeply human beings crave comparison. People measure themselves not only by their achievements, but by the achievements of those around them. When someone close surpasses them, it feels like a threat to their identity, as if your success diminishes their worth. But the truth is, envy is never really about the other person. It is about the mirror. They hold up the reflection of what remains unlived within the self. To see envy clearly is to understand that much of the hostility you encounter in life is not born from your flaws, but from your light. People are not only irritated by what is wrong with you, they are often more unsettled by what is right with you. They can forgive weakness, but strength awakens their own insecurities. They can tolerate mediocrity, but excellence exposes their avoidance. They can accept conformity, but authenticity highlights their masks. And so, instead of confessing envy, they fall silent, and in that silence grows resentment. The silence of envy is dangerous because it is invisible until it is too late. You may think someone supports you, only to discover they were quietly hoping for your downfall. You may believe you are surrounded by friends, only to learn that some have been competing with you in secret. The unspoken nature of envy makes it one of the most potent forces in human relationships. It erodes trust, corrodes connection, and turns admiration into animosity. Yet when you recognize the silence of envy for what it is, you stop misinterpreting it. You no longer shrink yourself to avoid triggering others. You no longer beg for explanations when someone withdraws. You no longer doubt your worth because of another's coldness. Instead, you see envy as the shadow. It is not a reflection of your failure, but a reflection of another's unclaimed potential. You realize that the silence surrounding your victories is often louder than applause. For, in that silence lies the unspoken confession of envy that words will never reveal.